It's really important that you know how to turn on your muscles before you exercise to be able to lift heavy weights, to be able to stay injury free. So how do we do this? How do we turn up the volume knob on our muscles, and why should we be doing this before every session? So maybe you've woken up early in the morning and you've tried to make a fist, a tight fist, and you just don't feel strong. You try and get out of bed and you feel heavy, and then even taking the lid off the toothpaste feels a lot harder than it did the night before. Why is this the case? Well, this is the case because when we sleep, all our nerves are turned down. All of our muscles are turned down. Now, you probably know a little bit of basic human anatomy, that if we look at the spinal cord and we look at our vertebral column, we have all these different levels of vertebrae, and we have nerves that come out at these different levels. When we wake up in the morning, all those nerves, it's almost like they have a little volume knob on them, and the volume knob is turned right down, maybe turned down to a 0 or a 1. So when we try and take the lid off that toothpaste bottle, it's hard to do. Our nerves aren't turned on, and therefore our nerves can't tell our muscles what to do. So it's a slight oversimplification, but basically the nerves at the top of our spinal cord, they run out to our arms. The nerves down the bottom of our spinal cord, they run out to our legs. And all these different levels of our vertebral column, all these different levels of our spinal cord have all these little volume knobs on them. Like we said, at the start of the day, they're all turned down to 0. However, as we go about our daily activities, we start to excite these nerves. We start to turn them on a little bit. We start to turn up the volume knob. But maybe we're only turning them all up to a 4. Our body is in a ready state. It's ready to do something, but the whole point is we don't know what that something is. We can't have everything turned up to 10, being in that hyper aroused state, because it's not sustainable and it's flat out exhausting. So they hover around this 4 or 5 mark, ready to move. So let's say that you start your exercise session with all your volume knobs on 4. At best, you're not going to be lifting very heavy, you're not going to be moving very well, and at worst, you're setting yourself up for injury. Because we need our muscles to be turned on, we need our nerves to be activated, we need these volume knobs to be turned up on the specific movements and muscles that we will be using during that exercise session. So maybe you are doing a movement with a hip hinge. You want to have the nerves that activate your glutes to be turned on. Maybe you're doing something with your upper body. We want those muscles around your shoulder blades that give us scapular stability to be turned on. If you're doing heavy deadlifts, maybe you need that lower back to be activated. If you're doing some sort of gymnastic or bodyweight movement where you need a good, strong, solid braced core, maybe you need your abs to be activated. We need to turn the volume up from that baseline level of 4 to something like a 7, 8, or a 9. So how do we do this? How do we actually apply this to our training? Well, the first thing you can do is look at the movements you will be doing in that session, because we want specificity here. If you're doing primarily an upper body exercise session, you don't need to work on activation of the lower body, because again, we can't turn all these volume knobs up to 10. We want to turn the lower body knobs down. We need to turn the upper body knobs up so we can arrive at this perfect state, this perfect level of peak arousal for the movements that we are going to be doing in that actual session. So we look at those movements we're doing and we look at where we commonly see faults. So maybe you're squatting and your knees fall in. This tells us there's a lack of activation in those muscles involved in keeping the knees out, in that lateral or external rotation at the hip. Maybe when you're doing push-ups, you always find that your shoulder blades shrug up, your neck disappears into your body, and your earlobes touch the top of your shoulders. We know that there is perhaps a lack of activation in those muscles involved in scapular depression, in pulling your shoulder blades down to be in a good, strong, stable position, which is not only going to allow you to perform at a higher rate, but also to keep you injury-free. So take the movements in your session, look at the common dysfunction which may be caused by a lack of activation, and do drills to activate those muscles. Maybe for the squat where the knees are falling in, you're going to warm up with some squats at a very light weight with a band around your knees. That band is going to try and pull your knees into what's called a valgus force or a valgus position. But because the band is trying to pull your knees in, you will have to fight that by driving the knees out, by screwing the feet into the ground and activating those muscles through the hip. What happens then is we're turning the volume up to 8 or 9. So when we take the band away, even though we don't have that resistance pulling us in that we are trying to fight, we are able to create an activation pattern to keep our body safe and to keep our body strong. So next time you're about to start an exercise session, do some pre-exercise activation first. Identify the muscles and the nerves that are maybe a little underactive and do some activation and stabilization work to turn the volume knobs up and optimize your performance and health. And all of these activation strategies play a huge part in range of motion individualized programming. We program and prescribe specific drills for each of our clients based not only on their faults, but the specific movements that they will be doing in the session, in their training for that day. You can learn more about range of motion individualized programming at rangeofmotion.net.au/ROMIP. It is your complete online programming and coaching experience to help to take you where you're trying to get to.